Hello, and welcome back to our channel. My name is Rosie, and I am the artist behind Wandercrafter and also the creator of the Craft Academy. Today, I'm really excited to have Ceci here. She is the artist behind A Trace of Grace. She's located in Fresno, California. And we came up with this amazing idea together for a macaron decorating class. And I am just so excited to have her here to talk to her about like some of the challenges that she's experienced in creating this class. It's such a brand new novel idea that I think sharing with the world is going to be amazing. So I'm excited to dive in with her. So first I'll have Ceci introduce herself and give us a little background on how she got started.
Yeah, so hi everybody, I'm Ceci, and when I first started learning calligraphy, it was basically a therapeutic hobby, and it slowly just transformed into this small business of woodworking and engraving. And then over time, I started to take multiple courses and was seeking help because it is challenging trying to build this business on your own. So that's when the engraving came in, and I discovered Rosie and the Craft Academy, and it literally flourished my business and my self-confidence in what I do. And being a creator, sometimes we can hit a roadblock, and I was at that spot until we went into this whole engraving. When I joined the Craft Academy, I started to do on-site engraving with Rosie, so that was a really big shift, and that was a lot of fun. It was something I didn't think I could ever do, and having that opportunity to do that outside of town was a lot of fun. And then as we joined in during this time of the year, which is considered our off season, just trying to brainstorm on what to do aside from engraving, and one of them was teaching calligraphy. I did teach calligraphy last year, but just online, not in person. And my friend here, who is a local pastry maker, he makes the macarons. He's like, hey, if you're interested in the location to come and do your calligraphy classes, you can do it at our spot. It's a small cafe here in town. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Mind you, I didn't even set up a plan or a schedule yet for this type of workshop. And I brought this to our meeting one day, and Rosie here was like, I have an idea. And I was like, okay, let's hear it. And she's like, what if you teach calligraphy and how to do it on a macaron? And I was blown away, because I'm like, for one, I would have never thought of that. We're just two small businesses here in local Fresno trying to support each other. And to incorporate his actual macarons in the class, that was mind-blowing, and people love the idea. For one, how do you do that? Two, the fact that we can include a food into this workshop, where a lot of people are just used to pen to paper, which we still do. But instead of pen to paper, we're using a paintbrush. I'm teaching calligraphy with watercolor. So that's how we were able to integrate the food, the edible gold dust, into creating an ink out of it, to lettering what they learned, their skill in the workshop, to putting it on these delicious macarons. So
yeah, and I think one of the coolest things about that is that you can reuse those macarons afterwards. Like, obviously you can eat it, but you can also like use these decorations for like a wedding or a birthday or baby shower. There's so many things that you can use and like do with these macarons when you're done with it. You mentioned that when you were talking to Van about hosting a class there, this was just going to be like a regular calligraphy class. It would have been like a brush or a pointed pen class, which it's not bad. It's just it's been done like a lot. Like it's everywhere. Yeah. Like there's so many beginner calligraphy classes there already. Not only online, but also in the Fresno area. There is a calligrapher who specializes in beginner calligraphy classes. So we wanted to make sure that we came up with an idea that was so novel and different so that we wouldn't be stepping on anyone's toes. So if there's anyone who wants to join in on the macaroon class, if you are in like Central California, Fresno area, she is going to be teaching once a month. So definitely check out CeciTorres.com to find out when the next class is. What are your future plans for this class? Do you feel like it's going to continue being like an in-person thing? How do you feel like you're going to scale it?
Right now, yeah. So we'll keep it as in person, and down the road, I did speak to with Seth, and it could be something that we could possibly put into other states, or eventually teach it online to where, another calligrapher can purchase the supplies and they can possibly teach it in their own town. So that's something that we're possibly thinking in the works. So
that's amazing. That's so cool. I love that. I think that's going to be a really good way for you to create that passive income so that you don't have to keep, trading your time for money and like have to be there in person in order to create that experience for your other clients. So there's a couple ways that she's thinking about doing it, maybe doing a subscription service, and then patenting the class so that she can teach it to other calligraphers in different areas, whether it's in, across the United States or even international. So that's going to be really cool. Or just create an online course where you can just tune in and purchase the class one time and have access to it for life and create your own, unique creations. So I think there's a massive amount of potential here, and I'm really excited to see where you go with it. You mentioned that you had never lettered on macaroons before or ever really did brush calligraphy. Is that right? Or like
right,
water brush calligraphy. So tell us about some of the challenges that you ran into.
Well, first off, I didn't even know how to even letter, or that there was even such a thing of edible gold dust, because pastries, all that's obviously not my specialty, but I do love to eat them. And when we were talking in class, like, okay, well, how can I teach that? And I'm thinking straight to the pointed pen, or, but that's not what they're going to be using at the end to letter on the macaron. So I literally had to teach myself how to use a paintbrush, how much water to mix for it with the ink for the watercolor. That was my first time ever using watercolor. I've seen it and I think it's so beautiful how, these artists use it in their art and in their calligraphy, and it's totally different because with the pen, you're able to add more pressure and not have to worry about breaking anything. You're just in the flow of it, versus with the paintbrush, you really have to think of the pressure points and your bristles not splitting, or the delicacy of the macaron. Like, you don't want to press too hard either because you can break them. They're delicate pastry. So I literally had to go in, just teach myself, play with the watercolor, play with the pressure points. And then also, since we are lettering on watercolor paper, it's a lot thicker, so we're not using the traditional type of get a tracing sheet, put it over your printed paper. It's like you don't see it on the back, so that we have to go in and actually use pencil and create those guidelines for the students, so that way they can at least see it on their paper, because you can't see through it. But then going in and lettering on the macarons, in some of my videos, you can probably see my hand is super shaky because it's such a small item and it's slightly round. So it's not like it sits flat, or, you have to hold it at a certain angle and whatnot. So that alone was challenging at first. But once you start learning the whole concepts of calligraphy, you just get in your flow of it, and it's fun to be messy with it because it's paintbrush. It's just paint at the end of the day. So. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So then you figured it out, you packaged it, you had your own challenges, which is great because you actually experienced what the student would be experiencing on their first try. And then you had all of that education and information like super fresh in your brain. You were able to package it into a way that the other students were able to understand very easily. So I think that's great that you were able to experiment yourself and figure it out and then repackage it into a way that is step-by-step breakdown for these potential students.
Yeah.
So I guess moving on to, you created the curriculum. Essentially, you had a workbook that you had already created in the past because you created that online course or taught an online calligraphy class. So you kind of had like the experience and the background already. Now you have this like brand new medium that you're creating. Once you created the curriculum and started posting the tickets online, what were some of the challenges that you experienced in selling tickets?
The marketing was a little bit challenging, but at the end of the day, it was super helpful in learning how to do that. So, because for one, we don't want to be like salesy all the time on social media.
Right. Yeah.
At the same time, it's like, come in and join in my class, and you're selling or trying to get this service out there. But the more value you bring to people and allowing them to say yes to themselves, I think that's what's a little more challenging, because I, for one, don't always say yes to myself. So how can we encourage others to say, yes, I'm gonna give myself permission to be a beginner. Yes, it's not gonna be perfect. Yes, I can come in and be creative. Yes, I can try something new.
You said a couple of really good points that I wanted to touch on in there. Learning how to market yourself and not be salesy. So how did you kind of get over that?
What helped me get over that is, what value am I bringing to the clients? And what calligraphy did for me, as it helped me, it was therapeutic for me, because for one, my mind is on the go nonstop unless I'm sleeping. So I know that if someone were to come in and take this class, they're not going to think about anything else but how slow they have to go on those strokes, where the pressure points have to happen, where the transitioning happens. So it's not just the calligraphy itself. It's like I'm offering them a time for them to slow down and come do something for themselves and give them this creative space. So being salesy, we're salespeople every single day. Where are we going to go eat? Oh, this place sounds so good. I've heard nothing but good reviews. So we sell on a regular basis. The difference is here, as an entrepreneur or a business owner, we're not so much just selling, we're offering you this space. We're offering you, like, once you get past, oh, I don't want to sell, it's more of like, well, why is it important for somebody to take your class? Well, it was important for me because, again, that you have that creative space, you have that time for yourself. Self-care is huge. You offer that time to learn something new that you probably didn't even think you'd be good at. So it's getting past the about you, it's about your customer. Like, you're here to provide that for your customer or your clients. You're doing them a service by offering this, versus, oh, I feel bad selling this. No, you shouldn't.
Yeah. It feels easier to sell for someone else than it is to sell for
100%.
yourself, or to sell something that you offer. So a lot of the times, people will decrease their rates, they'll cheapen themselves. And that's definitely one of the things that we talk about in the Craft Academy a lot. Like, we're always stressing out, like, not to cheapen your prices, not to give any discounts, and to really price on the value that you're providing for your client, not for the value that you think you're providing for yourself.
Right. So. And also with the pricing, what I've learned is, for an example, when you price something, let's say at a high cost, and you think, oh my gosh, that's too much. But when somebody goes in and pays that, they're going to pay more attention because they're paying that much. And they're not going to want to miss it. They're going to be all in, because we know when we buy something expensive, we take that much more care of it. Or we're like 15 minutes early because it's like, I just spent thousands of dollars to be here. So by you just charging less, you're kind of taking that away from the client.
Would you mind just giving us a little bit of insight on, like, what your process was like doing the woodworking stuff and how much you were making from each product?
Yeah, so a lot of people think that it's also machine. I do everything by hand with the scroll saw, which is what I just started this past year. But before that, it was still all by hand. I wasn't using the Cricut machine. If anything, I was just using it just to create the outlines. But it goes in from meeting the customer, designing the designing their design, and then going in and making a couple of switches or adjustments. Can take a few hours to keep back and forth with the client. And then after that, then I'd go in to go get the type of wood. Then we go in and design type of stain. Then we go in with the type of thickness. Then we go in and scroll. Then we sand. Then we prep, and then we paint. And if it wasn't with the scroll saw, it was just the wood, hand to wood, it was the same thing. You still have to go in and you have to go and sand everything down, prep it, prime it, and then go into letter and then deliver. So all in all, it was only not even, maybe not even 1,000 to making on these types of projects, because people also didn't want to pay what these projects really do cost. They should be easy over 1,000 each one. But
and then how much were you actually charging?
Not enough. So my base was, I believe, $35 an hour. And plus the material and all that. So I've probably made like a large wood sign, 12 by 24 for like maybe $200. Like, yeah. So
that's giving me like PTSD.
So there's a lot of work. That's why, like, I love the woodworking. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love it because I get lost in it and it takes all this time. But then I realize that's not generating the income quite yet. So I love it. I love to play with it and enjoy and have fun with it.
Right. So now it's your hobby, and now you can actually take the time for yourself and make it for fun versus for income. I think when you drop your rate and you're not charging enough, you end up resenting your creativity, which is really painful. I personally also experienced that because I had the Glowforge for a couple of years and was doing stuff on that. And like, just to give you an idea, I was creating cake toppers, and market rate was like anywhere between $18 to like $30. I would charge that market rate and end up spending like 5 hours between like designing it and cutting it and painting it and packaging it and then shipping it out. Versus obviously doing the live events where you're charging $125 plus per hour just so that you could, and like you're there and then you can check out. Like you don't have to take anything home. You don't have any overhead within your space. And so that's really helpful. It just simplifies your business model. And so that's really why I gravitated towards that, in addition to just really loving performing for other people. And for all of the other creatives out there who are thinking like, oh, I don't know if I can do this live, there's actually plenty of space. If you look into like the brand activation space, you can literally do anything in front of people, and that will like count as like brand activation. Anything that like draws people in, creates curiosity. Like I've seen people do airbrushing, watercolor painting, like fashion illustrations, like foil stamping, like literally anything. If you name it, you can probably turn it into some kind of brand activation. And so I don't want people to be discouraged and think like it's only for calligraphy, the calligraphy space, or for engraving. You can literally do anything. And that's kind of where the Craft Academy comes in, is like, we want to help you hone in on your creativity and your space and help you package that and brand it into an experience that other people will want to hire you for. If this is something that you would be interested in doing, definitely check out the Craft Academy. I'd love to talk to you and figure out where your creative space lies and how we can help to repackage that so that you can create your own luxury brand activation experience.
Going in to do these events on sites, getting paid $125 an hour. I come from, the corporate world where the max you'll make is maybe $27 an hour. So honing in and going into this type of event, getting paid for your skill for that amount was a big eye opener. Like, oh, there is really something here. Oh, I really can do something with, on-site engraving. And being able to just travel to LA, I mean, that alone was a lot of fun. So we got to actually be in person. But there is there is enough space for us creatives and us engravers and us calligraphers and makers. So going in and making a couple thousand on the weekend, whereas you have to work 40 hours to make that, it's a big difference, you know? So going into these live events, and you're not just engraving and working with, you know, one person, you're working for brands. And so when you work for these higher end brands, it's like, and they love what you do and they're watching you like, oh my, they're amazed by it because for one, they're doing it by hand and it's not a machine. So people are like, you're actually doing this right now. I'm like, yes, we're doing this right now.
Watch me whip.
Yeah, exactly. So that to me was like, okay, there really is something more here versus, you know, back at what I was doing before was working with different mediums, trying to make a good continuous income, which is why I worked with wood, which is why I worked with, you know, the machines that I worked with, which I absolutely still love to do. Is just for me where I'm at in my life right now. And back in December and November, it was like being able to cut everything else out and just hone in that one engraving, that sweet spot that I call it, that, and make a good amount of income. Like, I don't have to do all the things. I actually can enjoy this and then go enjoy my time right after.
Yeah, I think everything that you said is just simply amazing. That's like mic drop status. So just to like clarify, she doesn't have to just do education. She doesn't have to just do engraving. Those are like her two pillars of her business. And so right now she's creating a more passive income so that she doesn't have to be working all the time in order to make that income. So that's something that I'm really excited to help her create so that she can live her life to the fullest and really enjoy it and enjoy the time that you have here. So at the end of the day, that's your value. That's what it comes down to as humans. So I'm really excited to see where you're going to take this. I cannot wait to help you build your business, your program, all of the things. So tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm a trace of grace. And if you want to go on my website, it is cecytorres.com. Also on TikTok is also a trace of grace. So they're all kind of linked in together there. So yeah.
Perfect. And that's where we found each other. So
yep. And we found each other on TikTok.
Perfect. So do you have any like last minute advice for anyone who is interested in joining?
Yes. I would say give yourself that chance. So if you want more clarity, more direction, more support, if you want more support than anything, I would say definitely join the Craft Academy because it will definitely be a game changer for you and your business and or wherever you're at right now. At least you'll have all of us rooting you on. And if you have any questions, we're all open. So I would definitely say give yourself the opportunity to just go and get some guidance with us.